Hi, welcome to Futureproof Your Planet, our Sustainability Master Series, where we go over how science, technology, engineering and fashion can impact our planet. Today we're joined by Lindsay and Amy, who will be going over how fashion can impact our world. You guys want to say hi?
Hi.
Hi!
Hi, I'm Dr Amy Benstead and I'm a senior lecturer in fashion management. Imagine walking into your favourite clothing store or unboxing your latest online purchase. But what about the story behind that item? Today we're going to unravel the dark threads woven into the fashion industry. Let me start with a question. Have you ever thought about who made the clothes you're wearing right now? Where and how were they produced? Let's dive into the hidden side of the fashion industry, a side many of us rarely consider. The fashion industry is incredibly labour intensive, and we must consider the social implications. Modern slavery and exploitation are critical challenges within garment manufacturing. Often, those making our clothing suffer from poor working conditions, underpayment of wages, long hours without proper breaks, and a lack of job security. Yes, slavery still exists today, but it has evolved. Modern slavery covers various forms of exploitation, including forced labour and human trafficking. And it's not just happening overseas, it's right here in the UK too. The latest global estimates from the International Labour Organization reveal 28 million people are trapped in forced labour. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 8 aims to ensure decent working conditions to end forced labour and modern slavery. So what is being done to achieve this goal? The UK Modern Slavery Act of 2015 requires large companies to publish an annual transparency statement addressing exploitation within their supply chain. Unfortunately, the consequences for non-compliance are minimal, and the quality of these statements varies significantly. Regulation of the fashion industry continues to be fragmented and largely reactive, whereby changes tend to be incremental. Detecting and remediating modern slavery is difficult. Audits can help, but they're just a snapshot in time. An audit is a kind of inspection which often focuses on the health and safety within a factory. Modern slavery expands the scope of an audit. One crucial aspect often overlooked is the importance of worker voice in the fashion industry. While many factory audits include interviews of a few selected workers, these are primarily used to detect red flags rather than genuinely understand the workers' conditions. To truly safeguard workers, we must listen to and value their voices and experiences. The power imbalances between retailers, factories and workers are stark. A worker-focused approach is needed to address this. Companies must accept that improving transparency and developing a worker-focused approach involves significant costs, but such investments are meaningless without ongoing internal reviews and changes. To raise industry standards, all stakeholders, retailers, suppliers, policymakers and consumers must collaborate. We also need a change in mindset where people value clothes and the people that make them. Modern slavery might be present in every supply chain. There's no quick fix. We need a multi-stakeholder approach that prioritises workers' perspectives to drive necessary changes and remediation. So, next time you buy a piece of clothing, think about the people who made it. Demand transparency from brands. Support ethical practices and ethical clothing brands. The clothes you wear tell a story. Let's make sure it's one we can be proud of. Together, we can weave a future where fashion is not just a statement of style, but a statement of our values. The fashion industry is built on the back of widespread exploitation of both people and the planet. Together, we can push for a fashion industry that respects both people and the planet.
If you're listening to this talk, the chances are that you're already interested in the fashion industry. I'm sure you already know that shopping has never been easier. Every year we buy millions of items of clothing, and these clothes are not designed to last or even to stay on trend. Every year, millions of tons of textiles end up in landfill. It's difficult to know what to do about this. It's estimated that £140 million worth of clothing in the UK is sent to landfill every year. Currently, only 1% of this discarded textiles is recycled into new fibres and fabrics. But there is hope. The circular economy offers us sustainable solutions by helping us rethink how we produce, consume and dispose of textiles. This is what we're looking at and working towards at the University of Manchester. And this is what my project, Game Changers, focuses on. Textile waste starts with our shopping habits and what we buy. We buy more clothes than we need, and we often discard them after just a few wears. This take, make, waste model strains natural resources and fills landfills. The life cycle of garment is short in this current system. But what could we do to extend it? The circular economy reimagines this life cycle. Instead of the linear path we've been following, we create a loop where textiles are reused, repaired and recycled. The circular economy is about keeping products and materials in use for as long as possible. It's a system that benefits businesses, society and the environment. By adopting circular practices, we can reduce waste, lower carbon emissions and conserve resources. A helpful tool in transitioning towards circularity is the R-ladder. The R-ladder is a helpful tool to guide us towards more sustainable behaviours. It starts with the most impactful actions at the top and moves down towards the less impactful ones. Due to the extent of the problem we're facing, we need multiple strategies to tackle this, which include dealing with the waste we currently have, as well as creating less waste as we go forward and move into a circular approach. We're often familiar with the reduce, reuse, recycle, but there's much more to the R-ladder, and it's more important than ever now. We need to explore these strategies on the R-ladder that help us move towards a circular economy, extending the lifespan of garments and changing the way we consume garments, extending the lifespan of products and parts through reuse, repair, refurbishment and repurposing. But what could this look like? This is what we're currently exploring in our work here, what it looks like to reimagine these business models, to inspire behaviour change. We also have incoming legislation which we expect to see in the next few years, which will impact the fashion and textile industry. Extended producer responsibility and the waste prevention programme in the UK. We've already seen France have their anti-waste bill and new label legislation, particularly for fast fashion. So it's clear that this is both important and a timely issue. Here in the UK, we have our Fixing Fashion report from 2019, which highlights the importance of circularity in fashion, along with recycling strategies, and acknowledges the importance of education for primary school-aged children as a way and a strategy to accelerate behaviour change. So how can we do this? Education is key to driving change. When communities and individuals understand the impact of textile waste, they are much more likely to adopt sustainable practices. We run workshops here at the university and in the local community to teach people how to repair their clothes, how to remake and repurpose garments, as well as learn about other sustainable strategies such as swapping and recycling textiles properly. This is using our Game Changers workshop, which takes redundant sports shirts and teaches participants how to make them into a simple bag. This creates opportunities for both upcycling and upskilling. The reason we focus on sportswear is due to the number of sports shirts that we see appear every season. And the problem with these is it's usually polyester fabric, which is essentially plastic and takes around at least 200 years to decompose. The Game Changers is about empowering everybody to make a difference. Learn about fabrics, learn what things are made from and where they go. These initiatives not only reduce waste, but also foster a sense of community and shared responsibility. We want to get as many people as possible learning about the impact of garment waste and the simple strategies that can be used to tackle this. Each one of us has the power to make change. By embracing the principles of the circular economy and climbing the R-ladder, we can reduce textile waste and protect our planet. Like most things, it's easy to start with small steps. Wear things that you have for longer. Repair where you can. Refuse fast fashion. Shop second-hand. Or participate and join a clothes swap. Try Vinted or eBay if you haven't done already. Share your clothes with others. All these small acts start to contribute towards a circular economy and keep clothes in circulation for longer and out of landfill. The work we're doing is about community education and driving behaviour change. It's a long game, but we believe it has the power to make a difference and that together we can create a sustainable future for generations to come. So join us here at the University of Manchester to become part of the solution.
You've heard from my colleagues already about the dark side of the fashion industry, And I think it's really easy to get very depressed about it all and start to think, well, what difference can I make when this is a huge global issue? Amy and Lindsay have talked about the human and consumption impacts of fashion and some of the possible solutions. I'd like to talk to you about how science can also help us with fashion industry problems. My name is Jane Wood and I trained as an industrial textile technologist. I've worked all over the world in textile and garment manufacturing and saw firsthand some of the devastating impacts of the fashion industry on the environment. It's really not a myth. If you want to know which colours will be fashionable next season, take a look at the colour of river water near textile manufacturing factories. But textiles and clothing can also pollute the environment in other ways that are a little less visible. As well as the coloured pollution from dyes, there are lots of chemicals that can get into the environment through liquids that are colourless, and therefore we can't see that they are in the water. Other pollutants are in the air, invisible to us, but we can breathe them in without even knowing about it. You might think that once textiles are produced, that's the end of the pollution, but sadly it isn't. Tiny fibres break off our clothing when we wash and wear them. And sometimes you might notice these, but most of the times you don't. Lots of dust in your house is made up of these tiny fibres, also known as microfibres, and these can be very harmful too. We can breathe them in, and they get washed out into natural waterways and end up being consumed by plants and animals, which we end up eating. Lots of research is being conducted to assess how much harm this is doing to us all. And it's all very depressing, isn't it? But we are working on solutions. I'm now an academic researcher and lecturer in fashion and textile technology. And because I know lots about how textiles are manufactured, I've started to work on ways in which we can make textiles to be less environmentally harmful, such as looking at ways in which we can use nicer chemicals and dyes in the production of textiles. One of the big problems is still how much people want to consume clothes. And by that, I mean fashion trends are still popular and fast fashion is something that is still in demand. And I think the hardest challenge is to change consumer behaviour. I think that science is the easy bit. Think about this. If people still want to buy fast fashion and they only want to keep clothing for a short period of time, why do we currently make this out of materials that last forever? Lots of fast fashion garments are made from polyester. Polyester is a synthetic fibre that's very durable and lasts a very, very long time. And one of the reasons that you see piles of clothing in landfill is that polyester doesn't degrade, and the majority of clothing is made out of synthetics like polyester. So, as a scientist working with lots of other researchers, I investigate new fabrics, ones that do biodegrade easily. If we could make fast fashion out of these, we could still have high fashion garments that we could recycle or biodegrade at the end of their useful life and eliminate landfill clothing mountains. I work on fabrics such as bacterial biofilms, like bacterial cellulose. And what this means is that I use microbes to create fabrics instead of using plants, animals or oil. And it's quite a new area of research, but one that's created some very interesting ideas so far. The great thing about these types of fabrics is that they biodegrade really easily and are not harmful to the environment during their production. As I mentioned, there's lots of work going on in this area, and researchers are looking at making alternative fabrics and leathers from all types of things, not just bacteria, but fruit, food waste and mushrooms. There's still lots and lots of work to do on many of these fabrics before you will be able to buy them in fast fashion or on the high street, but we are making progress. And the more people, like you, who are involved with the development of these ideas will make them reality so much faster. Whoever said fashion wasn't a science, or that science was boring?
Welcome back to the Q&A section. So the first question is going to be, has there been any student-led sustainability initiatives at the University of Manchester?
Go on.
Yeah, and I think that was really good when they're led by students. So last year we had some clothes swaps So we had it with our undergraduate students, and actually we have another one coming up in a few weeks where we've got our undergraduate and our postgraduate, so our students doing their masters. So they're all working together, and they organise it, they promote it, and promote it on social media, and then they run the whole event. And it's just a great opportunity to encourage everyone to look into their wardrobes. I think we're going to do them more often as well. The students were saying they want them quite seasonal as well. Don't know if you have anything to add on.
Yeah, no, it was such a success that I know that some of our postgrad students also did one in the student union in the summer, because it's just such a good way of repurposing and sort of swapping clothes without spending any money.
Yeah, that's amazing. Talking about postgraduate students, are graduate students parts of the initiatives like making sustainable clothing, or is this done within courses?
There's a mixture of both. So we have a range of units across the course. You can look at those on the website. Part of the project that I run, Game Changers, we've had summer interns working. So we have undergraduate students who get paid to work on the project in the summer. And then actually Lena, who was our first one, has now become got a funded PhD where she's looking at this area at garment waste and sustainability. So there's lots of different examples and different ways of engaging with it here at uni.
Yeah. Could I apply for fashion product initiative? Sorry, I read that wrong. Could I still apply for fashion product innovation with an A-level combined maths, physics and computer science? So could you join the fashion course with a more STEM background?
As far as I'm aware, I think we'd have to double check with admissions, so I don't want to kind of commit to anything now. But yeah, I think like the guidelines, there's some guidelines on the website, but I think our admissions team are probably best checking like the individual requirements, just so we make sure that we're giving the right advice.
Perfect. In which ways can we consciously consume to avoid overproduction of fashion by companies using slave labour practices?
I mean, it's really difficult because I think it's not always apparent what companies are doing. They're becoming a lot more transparent on their website, and there's modern slavery legislation now, so that particularly larger companies are producing modern slavery statements and saying what they're doing within their supply chain to tackle modern slavery. But it's a huge issue, and it's a very hidden issue as well, so it's very difficult to actually know, like no one's perfect, and there are companies that are certainly trying to tackle the issue. I think it's down to the consumer as well to do some research, and that's quite a lot of responsibility on the consumer as well. So I think I would encourage people to just have a look online and try and do a little bit of research as well into the brands that you are buying from, and try and see kind of what the brand values are, what are they doing. There's obviously some more sustainable brands that are coming up, and they've trying to build a more sustainable business model from the beginning. Whereas some larger companies that have, trying to now retrofit their business models to trying to be more sustainable. So yeah, it's really complex. Yeah. But I would just encourage people to just do some research. Be very aware what you're buying. Try and do as much research as you can, and try and only buy from a brand that you really connect with and you understand what's happening in their supply chain.
Yeah. What textiles materials are the most sustainable to use in production, and why are they not used in mass production?
That's another complicated question.
Got a lot of those.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we've got the main fibre groups. We've got synthetic fibres, we've got natural fibres. I know things like linen are particularly sustainable and organic and biodegradable, but there's complexity on how you can wear it and how you can use it and the functionality of it. I mean, I think the first thing to do is to look and see what you're consuming, understand what polyesters are made out of. They're synthetic, they're oil-based fibres that are created, so you're ultimately wearing plastic if you're wearing polyester. So, but there are complexities with cotton and wool. There's a lot of water used when you're making cotton to grow cotton. So it is not a one size, one answer. Like with most of the sustainable fashion materials, it's quite complex. So I think looking, understanding, learning, where is it made, what is it made from. I think it's much more sustainable to have fabrics that are monofibre, that they're just made out of one thing, because then they potentially can be recycled, even if they are polyester or cotton or wool. Once they're mixed fibres, you can't recycle them. So I think that's one way that you can sort of easily say, right, I'm going to go for 100% cotton or 100% polyester, because at least it's got the potential to be recycled, rather than something that's impossible to recycle because you can't separate out the fibres at the end.
On the vein of recycling, especially with fabrics, how viable is that on a global scale? Because I know a lot of big companies have suggested that we should recycle our clothing, but is that really happening as much as we want it to?
Well, I mean, there's some of the data says that only 1% of garments that are put for recycling are actually recycled into new fibres, because it's really complicated and you have to break down the fibres, then remake the fabric into new fabric. So it is not it's not commercially viable, and it's not done at scale. There are places where polyester is made out of plastic bottles and fleece fabrics, which is great, but it's at a relatively small scale. And then there are, cashmere is really great to recycle, wool can be recycled, cotton, we're getting some organic denims that are recycled now, but it's not without its more mechanical complexities, isn't it?
And I think all of our answers are saying it's very complex, but I think you see more on like the high street, for example, of recycled content. But there's a risk of greenwashing as well. So people might have heard this term where, it's pretending or you're looking like you're more sustainable than you actually are. So you'll often see maybe even a small content, when you look on the care label, it might have a small percentage of kind of recycled polyester. But then it's a bit going back to what Lindsay said, it's mixed with other fibres, so it can't actually then be recycled at the end of its life. So I think we have to be careful. I mean, it's great that we're seeing change happening, but we're still seeing, overconsumption. So, yes, it's great to start seeing recycled fibre content, but that's still creating more clothes and overconsumption.
The next question is, could I still contribute to sustainability of the fashion industry, even as someone going into mechanical engineering? I feel I'm very discouraged from it as no one takes the issue as seriously. So more so, how can people who aren't exactly in the fashion field help with the issue of sustainability in fashion?
I mean, we all wear clothes, so I think everyone has a part to play. So I think just really going back to what I said before, just trying to be quite an educated consumer, and I am conscious that's putting quite a lot of responsibility on the consumer, and the consumer certainly can't fix the issue, but I think it's a start. If consumers start being more educated, then it will try and encourage change as well, and we can all, we all have a part to play. So if we can all do our little bit of research and just know kind of what we're buying, and we're buying consciously as well, and we're buying something that we, really love, so it's not going to be like throwaway either. Don't know if you've got anything to add, Lindsay.
Well, I would think about the R strategies, which are part of garment circularity, and it's that point where you have a garment that you've bought. How can you keep it for longer? Can you repair it? Can you repurpose it? Can you remanufacture it? Can you sell it on vintage? Can you give it to somebody? Could you turn it into something else? There's a lot of stuff that's really simple there, whether it is just repairing it or it is just giving it to someone else. Those are all really sustainable things to do. So I think those are really sort of ways in which you can be really empowered to do that in your everyday life.
Just a quick final question. What could prospective students for the university do to help them get onto your course?
I think it's going back to kind of the research and educate yourself. I think it's really important to just be really informed about what's happening in the news. There's so much information out there now, whether it's on social media or on Instagram. There's some great podcasts, there's some great news sources. So there's websites like the Business of Fashion, Vogue Business. Some you do have to register, but you get some kind of free articles per month. So I think the Guardian as well, Guardian and BBC, they have areas, particularly the Guardian have kind of a fashion section, which is often looking at sustainability. So I just encourage people to really read and listen to as much, absorb yourself and know what's happening. Because once you arrive at the university, we teach very up-to-date information. We reflect on our research and embed that into the unit. But we're also making sure it's really current. So we'll often refer to things that have happened in the news. So if you are really abreast with what's happening, it's really going to help you when we're having those discussions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, both of you. Later on this week, we'll have another session on material science. And if you guys have any further questions, you can comment them in the YouTube section and we'll come back to them later on.